Idealization. This is where everything begins, and for the person entering it, it feels like nothing they've experienced before. The narcissist pursues with intensity, constant attention, deep conversations that go on for hours, a sense that this other person truly sees them. Compliments come easily and often. The connection feels rare, even faded. What's actually happening is a process of mirroring. The narcissist reflects back the target's own values, interests, and desires in a way that creates the illusion of perfect compatibility. It's not always calculated in a cold, deliberate way. Many narcissists genuinely feel this excitement in the early stage, but the version of the relationship being sold in this phase is not the one that will last. The idealization is real at the moment. What it isn't is sustainable. Testing. Beneath the warmth of the early stage, something quieter is also happening. The narcissist begins to probe small intrusions, minor boundary violations, comments that are slightly off, and then quickly softened with humor or affection. They're gathering information. How does this person respond when pushed? Do they hold their ground or accommodate? Do they raise the issue or let it go to keep the peace? Each response gets noted. If a limit is stated but not enforced, that information is stored and used later. The target rarely recognizes this phase for what it is because it's happening inside what still feels like the warmth of idealization. By the time the testing is complete, the narcissist has a detailed map of exactly where the other person is vulnerable. Devaluation. At some point, the tone begins to shift, and it usually happens gradually enough that the target spends a long time wondering if they're imagining it. The praise becomes less frequent. Criticism starts appearing, sometimes blunt, sometimes wrapped in humor or framed as honesty. The target finds themselves working harder for the same warmth that used to come without effort. Plans get canceled. Small humiliations appear in public. The connection that once felt so solid starts to feel conditional, though the conditions keep changing. What's often most confusing about this stage is that it doesn't replace the good moments entirely. It coexists with them. There are still periods of closeness, which keep the target oriented around the relationship rather than questioning it. Gaslighting. As the devaluation deepens, so does the need to manage the target's perception of what's happening. The narcissist begins rewriting events, denying things that were said, and framing the target's growing unease as evidence of their own instability. Concerns get met with counter-accusations. The target's memory of earlier promises or incidents gets systematically replaced with the narcissist version. Over time, the target stops trusting their own reading of situations and starts deferring to the narcissist's account by default. This is the stage where the psychological damage tends to run deepest because the person isn't just being hurt, they're being separated from their own ability to recognize that they're being hurt. That separation is very difficult to recover from quickly. Isolation. Alongside the gaslighting, the narcissist typically works to reduce the target's connections to outside support. This rarely looks like a direct demand to stop seeing people. It's more subtle. Complaints about a friend who causes drama, comments that family members don't really understand the relationship, a pattern of creating conflict or tension around any time the target spends away. Gradually, the target's social world narrows. They may not notice how much it has shrunk until they're already in the later stages of the relationship and realize they have very few people left to turn to. The isolation serves multiple purposes. It reduces the chances that someone outside will name what's happening, and it increases the target's emotional dependence on the narcissist as their primary source of connection. Intermittent reinforcement. Running through all of these stages is a mechanism that makes the relationship extraordinarily hard to leave. Warmth and coldness don't follow a predictable pattern. They alternate without clear reason. A period of cruelty is followed by sudden affection. A bad week ends with the connection feeling close again. The unpredictability isn't accidental. When positive experiences arrive on a random schedule, they carry far more emotional weight than they would if they were consistent. The target becomes oriented around the possibility of the good moments returning, which keeps them engaged even when the relationship is causing real harm. Behavioral psychology has studied this pattern extensively. It produces stronger attachment than either consistent reward or consistent withdrawal, which is part of why these relationships feel so consuming. Discard. Eventually, in many narcissistic relationships, a discard occurs. The narcissist withdraws, sometimes suddenly, sometimes after a period of escalating cruelty, and the relationship ends on their terms. The discard can feel completely without warning from the target's perspective, though in retrospect, many people recognize signs they weren't equipped to read at the time. What makes it particularly destabilizing is that the person being discarded is often left without a coherent explanation. The relationship simply stops, or is ended with blame that doesn't match the target's experience of events. After investing so much, and after having their sense of reality progressively undermined, the target is left to process an ending that doesn't make sense through a framework that has already been damaged. Hoovering. The discard is frequently not the end. Once the target begins to stabilize, once they've started rebuilding some sense of normalcy, the narcissist often returns. The approach varies depending on what the narcissist knows works on that particular person. It might be a sudden expression of remorse, a grand gesture, a message that seems to come from nowhere, or sometimes pressure and guilt designed to pull the person back. The timing is often precise in an unsettling way, appearing at the moment when the target is most vulnerable, far enough from the pain to have softened, but not far enough to have fully rebuilt. What the target receives in this moment rarely matches what gets delivered afterward. The promises made during hoovering tend to be the most expansive the narcissist has ever offered, and they're designed to speak directly to whatever the target most wanted to hear throughout the relationship. Many people return at this point, and the cycle re-enters the idealization phase. Each time it repeats, the devaluation tends to arrive faster, and the recovery takes longer. Trauma bonding. This is what makes the entire cycle so difficult to simply walk away from, even when the person clearly understands what's happening to them. Trauma bonding develops through the repeated alternation of harm and relief within the same relationship. The brain begins to associate the source of pain with the source of comfort, and the two become genuinely difficult to separate. It's a well-documented psychological response, not a character flaw or a failure of intelligence. People with high empathy, strong loyalty, or early experiences of inconsistent care can be particularly susceptible, not because they're weak, but because those qualities make them more responsive to the push and pull of the cycle. One of the harder truths about trauma bonding is that intellectual understanding doesn't dissolve it. A person can know clearly and completely that a relationship is harmful and still feel a pull toward it that doesn't respond to logic. The bond was formed below the level of conscious thought, and that's the level it needs to be addressed at, usually slowly, usually with support, and almost never in a straight line. Understanding the mechanism is where the process begins, but it's rarely where it ends. Recovery. This is the stage that doesn't always get included in these explanations, but it belongs here. Leaving a narcissistic relationship, or even just recognizing one for what it was, doesn't immediately restore the person who entered it. The target emerges with a set of patterns that were installed over time: a tendency to over-explain themselves, difficulty trusting their own perception, a reflexive need to manage other people's emotional states before attending to their own. These don't disappear when the relationship ends. In many ways, the internal work of recovery is longer and quieter than the relationship itself. There's also a grief component that catches many people off guard. It's not just the relationship being mourned, it's the version of the relationship that existed in the idealization phase, the person the narcissist appeared to be, and sometimes the years spent trying to get that person back. That grief is real even when the relationship itself was harmful, and treating it as such tends to be more useful than pushing past it. Another thing that takes time to rebuild is the ability to feel safe in closeness with other people. After a relationship that used intimacy as a weapon, where the things shared in vulnerable moments were later turned into leverage, openness starts to feel dangerous. Learning to distinguish between relationships that are genuinely safe and old patterns that have simply become familiar is some of the most important and most difficult work recovery involves. What helps most, according to both research and the accounts of people who've been through it, is the slow process of rebuilding a relationship with one's own judgment, learning to trust a reaction before questioning it, and recognizing that the self-doubt that feels like humility is often the residue of someone else's prolonged influence. Leave a comment below if you recognize any of the stages. You might help someone else feel less alone.